Sault Ste. Marie is proud to be the home of Northern Breweries. This microbrewery can trace its origins back to the Port Arthur Beverage Company, which began operations in Thunder Bay in 1876. The current company is an employee-owned operation with breweries in Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury. Currently, the Sault Ste. Marie plant produces bottled and draft beer. The brewing process starts with tanks of pure hot water prepared at a precise temperature. The correct quantity of water is run into a vessel known as a mash tun. Meanwhile, the barley malt, which has been stored in a silo, will be crushed and precisely weighed. It is then added to the hot water in the mash tun. At the same time, corn grits and malt are added to hot water in a cereal cooker and brought to a boil. This boil will liquefy the cornstarch. Once boiled, the corn is pumped from the cereal cooker into the mash tun and mixed with the crushed malt. The boiling hot corn rises the temperature of the malt to its conversion temperature, which means enzymes present in the malt are activated and converts most of the malt and cornstarch to sugar. This sugar dissolves in the water, and the resulting sweet liquid is known as wort. The mixture of wort and grain is known as mash. When the mash is ready, it is transferred to the lauter tun. The lauter tun is essentially a large strainer. This lauter tun is fitted with a false bottom consisting of slotted plates that slow the hot wort to run through, but hold back any undissolved materials such as malt husks. The sweet wort filters through the husk and falls by gravity through a series of pipes into the brew kettle. The material left in the lauter tun, known as spent grains, is removed and sold to dairy farmers as valuable cattle feed. While the kettle is being filled, steam heating units inside the brew kettle bring the wort up to a boil. The wort is boiled down to a standard strength for each particular recipe. During the boil, various types of hops are added to the brew kettle and boiled. After the correct boiling time, the wort is pumped from the kettle to the whirlpool tank. It's called a whirlpool tank because the wort is pumped into it in such a manner that it swirls around as the tank fills. This rotation of the wort causes the protein shrub to settle out rapidly and remain behind when the whirlpool tank is emptied. The hot wort is transferred from the whirlpool tank through a stainless steel plate cooler where it is cooled to a temperature of 52 degrees Fahrenheit. Ice cold water flows on one side of the plate, the hot wort on the other. The cool wort now flows to the fermentation tanks where clean, sterile air is injected into it and the required amount of yeast is added. Here, Bob Shammy, the brewmaster, is stirring a new pot of fresh yeast which will be added to the wort. The yeast's job is to feed on the malt and corn sugar and convert it into alcohol and carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide bubbles out of the wort and is collected, purified, compressed, then stored in liquid form for later use when it is re-injected into the finished beer. After 9 to 10 days, all the sugar in the wort has been consumed by the yeast. It is now called beer and ready for transfer to storage tanks for aging. As the beer is transferred from the fermenting to primary storage tanks, it's chilled to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. When the beer leaves the fermenter, it is still cloudy, as Bob shows us in this glass. This is due to yeast cells and some protein staying in suspension. In primary storage, known as the roux stage, the flavor characteristics of the beer are developed and clarification occurs by settling in the cold. After approximately 7 days in primary storage, the beer is transferred to a secondary storage. Again, during transfer, the beer is chilled to near freezing and the first filtering occurs. The time period for second storage is variable, usually lasts between 2 to 3 weeks. At this point, the beer is once again chilled to 29 degrees Fahrenheit and filtered a second and final time. Dan the cellarman poured us a glass, and as you can see the difference between the two stages. The glass on the left has been filtered once, and the glass on the right that has been filtered twice is crystal clear and ready for re-injection of carbon dioxide collected earlier in the process. Bob Shammy will now pour us a glass of beer that's ready to be packaged. Check out the sparkle and head on this beer. And of course, the brewmaster has to put his stamp of approval on each batch. Here we'll watch the packaging of draft beer into stainless steel kegs. Draft beer is identical in every way to bottled beer. Since draft beer will always be kept cold and handled under controlled conditions, it's not pasteurized. This means the yeast is still active, and if kept cold, draft beer has a shelf life of approximately 6 weeks. Next, we'll show the bottling process. It starts with bottles being loaded into a bottle washer. Here, the bottles are washed with soap and water. The quality control department checks the bottles for cracks or foreign objects before they're filled with cold beer. The beer bottles are now capped, headed down to the conveyor belt for pasteurization. 150 degree Fahrenheit water is used to heat up the beer to kill the yeast. The pasteurization process is needed to protect the beer from less than ideal storage conditions when customers take the product home. Pasteurization allows beer to have a shelf life of about 3 to 4 months. The beer bottles are then labeled and sent to the packager. Ideally, bottled beer should be stored in a cool but not cold place. Beer should not be left for weeks or months in a refrigerator. The longer the beer is stored very cold, the more likely it will develop a chill haze, giving it an unpleasant, cloudy appearance. Northern Breweries currently produces 7 brands of beer and is only available in Ontario. We are fortunate in Sault Ste. Marie to benefit from the art, skill, and technology that go into every Northern product.